Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Force Commentary Point, and I thought I should get you guys up to speed as regards to the recent protests going around here in Serbia. So just a very quick recap. 15 people died under a collapsed canopy at a train station in one of the Serbian cities. Absolutely nothing was done when it came to, people getting arrested, when it comes to accountability, responsibility. Um, it's very clear that this was done due to corruption because this train station was renovated for some $60 million or some other insane amount. It definitely doesn't cost that much. All of you guys probably know how, people can earn a lot of money through public procurements. This was done through a Chinese company, Starlink, I believe. No, it's not Starlink, something, I can't remember the company name right now. But essentially, they got scot-free because that's what we signed, that in the case of accident, absolutely nothing can be done. So everybody here starts protesting. There are, again, a lot of people are saying this is a colored revolution. No, it's not a colored revolution because Vucic, our current president, and who has been the man in charge for the past 12 years, he's just been changing, different offices. He's supported by the European Union, he's supported by the United States, he's supported by China and Russia, because he literally gives everyone else what they want. He gives them our land, he gives them our money, he gives them our buildings. For example, he gave two very important buildings in the center of the centers of Belgrade to, I don't know, Trump's father-in-law or something, that will be turned into a hotel. And this is a former military headquarters that was bombarded during a NATO aggression in 1999. And it is a monument of culture that, when it comes to architecture, that building is very important. Its purpose should not change, which it definitely will. And there's also a barracks building next to it, which is quite beautiful, and it was simply gifted to the Americans to be turned into a sort of this entrance gate to the hotel. So, that's the background. The students started creating these blockades of different faculties in the university, and people started, having these 15 minutes of silence in honor of the 15 victims that died. A lot has been happening. This last Saturday, we had the biggest protest Serbia has ever seen. Lower end projections of the attendees was at 300,000, upwards to up to million. Because this was a whole day protest, it's very difficult to actually count people. And this was essentially throughout the entire city. So it's next to impossible to, count how many attendees there were. There were a lot. I was outside, I don't know, some 8 hours, for example. First, I was with my friends at, next to St. Mark's Church. And by the way, for all of those, this is a cult revolution thing. There's a lot of popular piety going on with these protests. A lot of people are, holding crosses, icons, sensing with handheld sensors, there's clergy and monastics about, and a notable absence of the flags of the European Union. There's a lot of people who complain about it. Well, you allowed the flag of Christ. Well, yeah, Christ never betrayed us, and the European Union did betray us because they keep calling Vucic the factor of stability or democracy or some other shit. I'm sorry, I have to say it, that's what it is. Just yesterday, he had this meeting with Martha Koss, and she said, we had this amazing constructive dialogue. No, you don't have a dialogue with, a murderer, a corrupt politician, a dictator, Anyway, what happened? It is customary at these protests, as I said before, to have 15 minutes of silence in honor of those 15 victims. Initially, the main event of the protest, which again lasted the entire day, was going to be before the National Assembly. At the last minute, the venue changed to Slavia Square, and I happened to live quite close to Slavia Square, which was providential, and the patriarch called for prayer for the peaceful protest a day before. The Akatis, so the most holy Theotokos, was served in all of Belgrade's churches, and probably even wider in Serbia. And how this whole situation resolved, I think it's nothing short of miraculous. So the students changed the venue at the last moment to Slavia Square, and the 15 minutes of silence started at 7 p.m. So during those times, of course, you don't talk, you don't do anything, you silence your phone, and you also turn on the torch on the phone and point at the sky so that drones would take the quite an amazing picture of these protests. For some reason or another, and it sort of became clearer why at a later date, the military forbade the use of drones during these specific protests. And by the way, a lot of trains and buses that connected the different Serbian cities stopped working a day before the protests with some silly explanations like there's a terrorist threat or something. And on the day of protests, all of the Belgrade's public transport stopped working completely, which never happened in like World War II so, or even during the NATO campaign. So you can imagine what we're dealing with here. There's a lot of firsts. So these 15 minutes of silence start at 11th minute mark. And by the way, I'm standing at the square. This incident happened near the drama theater in Srpskih Vladara Street, so the street of the Serbian rulers. I was like half a kilometer away from where this happened. We hear this enormous rush coming from my right. It sounded like a lot of people started screaming and shouting at the same time. At that moment, a lot of people around me were very annoyed because, people interrupted 15 minutes of silence. It's to say that it's rude, it would be the understatement of the century. So people around me start turning to the right and everybody's like frowning, commenting, it's too early, we have like 4 minutes left. Very soon after this, after like the official 15 minutes of silence were over, we got the official statement from the organizer of the protest that the protest is finished, that we should basically return home because the organizers can no longer guarantee the safety of the participants. So we all go home, and a day later we learned what happened. Well, I sort of learned it a tad before, but I had no clue what was happening. It turned out that our idiot government used a sound cannon during the 15 minutes of silence, again, while we are paying respects to people who have died underneath that canopy. And the clear intent was to cause a stampede, to cause a crowd crush. This could have resulted in, I don't know, up to 50 or 100 or even more, victims. Luckily, there's this rumor, but I don't see it actually verified anywhere, even by the organizer of the protest, that one man died, from a heart failure later in the emergency center, and that one pregnant woman lost her baby. However, I need to emphasize this is unverified. These are rumors that are going on social media, but again, there's nothing from the organized from the protests, and if these were true, I believe that they would have shared that message. A friend of mine was caught in the blast, and like 5 days earlier, I had no idea that such a thing. I mean, I assumed that there is some sort of like sound weapon, but I had no clue that we even had such a thing. He said that it simply cannot be described, that you're suddenly filled with this absolute terror of something and you don't even know of what. And there's this sound as if a huge train is about to crash on you, or as if a plane is about to land on you. That's how he described it. And a lot of people complained of the same thing. There is this footage of the attack where, you know, people are simply standing completely still. They're having their phones, you know, aimed at the sky with the torches lit. Suddenly, all of them turn around and all of them jump to the side, like as if something's, you know, throwing them about. And initially, the government denied that we have a sound canyon, and you know, if that's the case, these people who were affected by the sound cannon, well, you know, they're the world's best flash mob if I ever saw one, you know. There have been health effects to this. A lot of pacemakers stopped working. People were complaining about headaches, about you know, ringing in their ears. There's a lot of them sought, you know, medical help at the emergency center, and there was such an onslaught that actually the Minister of Health, who is called, by the way, Dr. Death, because he worked for one of the criminal clans here in Belgrade. He was in all probability responsible for a number of murders personally, and I do mean murders. I don't mean he somehow caused that. No, he killed them. He actually forbade for the emergency center to have any admissions based on these symptoms, like ringing in the ears, headache, I was caught in the blast, and so on. So that's what we're dealing with. And remember this, you know, emergency unit, because it will become very relevant very soon again, and for far worse reasons. Initially, the President Vučić denied that we have sound cannons, that he will you know, relinquish power if it's proven that there is sound cannon. Like a day after, the Minister of Police says, no, actually we have 16 of them. And then suddenly a lot of photos of these sound cannons surface. It's used as a crowd dispersal tool, and from what I could gather, it's actually, you know, forbidden to use one in the United States and Europe. So the question remains, why do we have something that's actually, you know, illegal to use? There have been a lot of memes going around about this cannon. All of them are terrific. I mean, I don't think there's really any point in sharing them. Yeah, and I need to refer to the vampire part of this video. I think it was a day later, there was a horrible tragedy in the town of Kučevo in Macedonia. There was a nightclub fire. At least from what I can remember right now, 59 people died, ages 14 to 24. I think that some people might have been older from what I recall, because all but one band members who were playing in that nightclub also died, and I do believe that some of them were older than 24. But yeah, it was a classical, you know, I like to call it nightclub, hundreds of victims in a nightclub fire starter pack. Old electrical installations, pyrotechnics, some fabric that's used as decoration, and the exit door that opens inwards. I don't know if there was issue with the door, but considering the number of victims, I think it's all very probable, and the fact that the venue was 250 people over capacity, so there were twice as many people as they were allowed. You get the picture. A lot of people died in that fire, so may the Lord grant rest to his servants, and please pray for them and for their families. A lot of these victims were sent to Serbia because we had better capacities to dealing with that, and so you can imagine, so not even a day passed, these people are in the emergency unit. They were covered in bandages. If you're not a doctor, you're not supposed to get inside because you have to go through all of these procedures in order to prevent the wounded from different infections, from sepsis and so on. The president, our vampire, our Count Nosferatu, he came with a huge camera crew. They were just wearing masks and light gloves, but you can be rest assured, none of them went through these procedures. And he came in to talk to the wounded and actually poke at their wounds. There's a man with an amputated hand. And the president is like, poke, poke, poke. Okay, St. Thomas, stop doing that, okay? Oh man. I mean, I know that Macedonia is like recovering from the horrible tragedy, but I think that the rest of their mind that wasn't preoccupied directly with the tragedy was aimed at hating Vucic, and for a very good reason. He was doing that to get political points. And listen, I don't mind politicians visiting the victims of tragedies. That's what they essentially should do. If Vucic was doing only that, we wouldn't have issues with him as a president. But not on the same day when you had the accident. You don't go visit them in the emergency unit. You don't poke at their like amputated limbs. I saw this reel of a girl, and she was making light of it. It was hilarious, but also very tragic. So pray for her too. She was a victim of these tornadoes. So may the Lord grant rest to those servants there who also died. Again, some 50 people at the very least. And she's in the hospital and she says, well, my hand flew, and she has an amputated arm, but my stick-on eyelashes are still here. We will never understand the caprice of the tornadoes, you know. They can like destroy your entire home, and this sole remaining wall of your bedroom will still have the medicine neatly tucked on a little shelf, completely untouched. So yeah, we are dealing with that caliber of an evil, insane person. Somebody said, I cannot believe what an incompetent dictatorship we have. And that's a very ample description. Not a single move they did since the tragedies was anything resembling anything that resembles sanity. Anything like painting off the middle fingers in schoolyards, visiting the wounded, claiming that we don't have a sound cannons that we actually do, trying to cause a stampede and crowd crush. It's horrible mistake after a horrible mistake, and from what I can tell, all with the tacit approval of the European Union. There have been some calls by, I believe, the European Parliament and so on. I'm really trying hard not to rant against the church. Sorry. I'm also part of the church, not the church hierarchy. Nothing short of shameful. Nothing short of shameful. Technically, they could be worse, honestly. They could be worse. I'm going to give them that, and I'm going to share one of the sole positive opinions I have of our patriarch. Well, outside of that, when it comes to patriarchy things, he does exceedingly well. When it comes to outreach and PR, it's a disaster of epic proportions. However, I'm going to say something positive. from what I know, uh, clergy of the Belgrade Archdiocese uh, weren't forbidden from like participating in the protests. And in my parish church, during the like great entrance, when the priest said, "And Lord, remember all the students," a notable pause, all of the professors, pupils, people who learn and who are and those who teach them, so he was like praying for people who learn and who teach them, but it was a clear reference to the protest because majority of these protests are organized by the students. Last week the priest had a great homily again about the protests. So there's a lot of opposition to this insanity from the clergy themselves, and from what I know, the patriarch does not oppose that. In the sense, he doesn't like forbid them for participating in the protests or having an occasional homily. So there's that, and I do think it's a great thing, So I'm going only to stay at that. I'm not going to further talk about the nonsense we've been exposed to here. But yeah, so this last Tuesday was, how do you call it? We call it the day of sorrow, day of mourning, when there's some major tragedy. Very often it's also for tragedies that happen on the Balkans. And somebody had a great remark, "Man, how many of these mourning days did we have recently?" It was the canopy. It was 8 people who burned down in Serbia because of an illegal retirement home that had, again, poor wiring. We had that insane person who stabbed 8 children in Zagreb and killed a child. We had that mass shooting in Montenegro where I don't know, 10 people were killed, a lot of them also children. We had this in Macedonia, and there's this black specter of death constantly looming here, and I simply want it exorcised for once. Yeah. So yeah, pray that we lay this vampire to rest. Bye.